The bank manager did not look like someone about to deliver good news. She was a trim woman in her late 50s with reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, and when she touched my arm in the lobby and said, "Mrs. Crane, would you please come with me?" Her voice was low enough that I knew we were not heading to a teller window. She closed the office door behind us and turned the security monitor on her desk toward me without saying a word first. The footage was time-stamped 3 days earlier, a Tuesday. I had spent that Tuesday at home, standing in my husband's closet, trying to decide which of his flannel shirts to keep and which ones to let go of. On the screen, I watched my daughter-in-law walk into this same bank lobby in a cream blazer and dark slacks, hair pinned back like she was attending a board meeting. My son walked half a step behind her, the way he always did when she was the one who had made the plan. She did all the talking at the front desk. I could see it even without audio, the folder she held, the way she gestured, the smile she used when she wanted something. Wide enough to seem warm, controlled enough to stay calculated. My son kept his hands in his jacket pockets and looked at the counter. The bank manager told me they had been turned away. Then they came back the following day with a different set of documents, turned away again. My husband Gordon had been in the ground for 5 weeks. I pressed my hands flat on the desk and breathed. His name was Gordon Crane, 74 years old. A carpenter his whole working life, then the owner of a small workshop on Millerton Road for the last 2 decades of it. He built furniture by hand, tables, bookshelves, chairs that people kept for 30 years because they were made to last. He was not a wealthy man by most measures, but he was careful. He labeled everything. He kept receipts from 1989 and anniversary cards from every year of our marriage. If Gordon put something important somewhere, there were also instructions somewhere telling the right person how to find it. What he had not told me was that 3 years ago, he quietly opened a separate savings account. I had learned about it from our estate attorney 2 weeks after the funeral. Modest amount, she said, a cushion. Gordon had left specific instructions with the bank, no access for anyone without me personally presenting identification alongside the death certificate. Not a power of attorney, not a healthcare proxy, me in person. I had not expected anything extraordinary. I had expected paperwork. Maybe a note. Gordon loved leaving notes. The bank manager clasped her hands on the desk. Your daughter-in-law presented a document claiming you were experiencing significant cognitive decline following bereavement and were unable to manage your own affairs. She paused. Our legal team found the notarization on the power of attorney to be irregular, possibly altered. Cognitive decline. I sat with those 2 words and felt something cold move through me. She continued. They returned the following morning with revised paperwork, also rejected. We felt it was our obligation to contact you directly once the sex attempt made. I asked to see the account. We walked to a small private room. She placed a folder on the table with the account summary, modest balance as the attorney had said, but inside the folder was a Ziploc bag, sealed, labeled in Gordon's handwriting, for Rosie. To be opened only by her, in person, after my death. Rosie. He had called me that since our first year of marriage, and I had never once asked him to stop. The letter was 4 pages, front and back, on lined yellow paper in his square, careful handwriting, the handwriting of a man who did not trust himself to fix errors, so he simply did not make them. My Rosie, it started. If you're reading this, then someone came to this account before you did, which means I was not wrong about what I was seeing. I had to put the page down, press both hands over my face, then I kept going. He had noticed it 18 months before he died, a draft agreement folded in the back seat of our son's car, when Gordon helped to jumpstart it on a January morning. He didn't confront anyone immediately. He read it first, carefully. It was a lending agreement tied to future claims against family property, our house on Cartwright Lane and the workshop on Millerton Road, filed by a party I didn't recognize. He confronted our son 3 weeks later. Our son admitted it. Private money, not a bank. The kind of lenders with their own rules about timelines and what happens when you miss them. He had borrowed against property he did not own yet, against a future he was already treating as guaranteed. Gordon gave him 4 months to find a solution. When nothing changed, Gordon started building a record. He visited our neighbor Agatha, retired paralegal, someone I had known for 22 years, and gave her a sealed journal. He also saw a trust attorney. 3 months before he died, he moved the house and the workshop into an irrevocable trust. I was named sole trustee. Nothing could be sold, transferred, or used as collateral without my written signature. He had told me he was handling some insurance-related paperwork that fall. I had signed where he pointed. I had trusted him the way I had trusted him in everything for 47 years. The last page of the letter was where my hands started to shake. Rosie, for the past 4 months my blood pressure medication has not been working the way it used to. I am more tired than I should be, my thinking feels slower. I switched pharmacies in March and began keeping my new prescription hidden. I could be wrong, I hope I am wrong, but Tamsin stayed with us for that week in January when you had your knee surgery. She had full access to the bathroom cabinet the entire time. I have written everything down in the journal I gave Agatha. If anything happens to me suddenly, go to her before you go anywhere else. She knows what to do. I sat in that room alone until I could move without my legs shaking. The bank manager brought me water without being asked. I drank it. Then I packed the letter away, asked for a cab and rode home without calling anyone. Not my son, not anyone from my family a cab. Our town looked ordinary from the back seat window. The hardware store Gordon went to every Saturday morning for 30 years. The diner where we ordered pie after every doctor's appointment. The Methodist church at the corner of Forethought and Birch, where Gordon's funeral had filled every pew and the back standing room both. I stood on my porch for a while before going inside. Gordon had built the railing himself, replaced it twice, had been planning to replace it a third time last spring, before the ladder started feeling less safe. No one was taking this house. Inside, I made tea I didn't drink, spread 3 pages from the letter across the kitchen table, enough to make the truth undeniable, not so much I drowned before I was ready. I was still there when headlights swept the driveway. My son never used the doorbell. Gordon had asked him a dozen times. The front door opened and my daughter-in-law's voice floated in ahead of her, bright, easy, practiced. "We thought you might be lonely tonight." She stepped into the kitchen and her eyes landed on the papers on the table before they landed on me, one fast glance, then to my face, then back to the papers. "Oh," she said, "you've been busy." My son stood behind her holding a bunch of white carnations. He looked like a man who had not slept in several nights. I folded my hands in my lap. "I went to the bank today," I said. The air in that kitchen changed. Subtle, she was too practiced for anything dramatic. But I watched her shoulders settle differently, and I watched my son's fingers tighten around those stems. She laughed, soft, measured. "Oh, Gordon's little account, did you get everything sorted?" "Not quite," I said. "I found something more interesting than paperwork." She moved toward the counter like she belonged there, the way she always moved through my kitchen, and glanced at the pages while appearing to look at something else entirely. "Whatever you found, let's not blow things out of proportion. You've had an exhausting few weeks." I picked up the top page and held it so both of them could see it. "This is a property draft with my signature on it," I said. "A signature I did not write. And I also saw the security footage of the two of you at the bank ago." My son made a sound I recognized from when he was 16 and caught in a lie he had not prepared for. She did not flinch. Those were preliminary documents. We were trying to get ahead of the estate paperwork before things became complicated. By telling the bank I had cognitive decline. A pause. "You were grieving," she said. "We thought it would be easier if we handled things on your behalf." I looked straight at her. "Sit down." She sat, slowly, with the face of someone who is deciding which version of cooperation is safest. My son set the carnations on the counter and sat without being asked. I kept my voice level. "Tell me about the loan." Her chin came up. "What loan?" "The private lending agreement tied to this house and the workshop, the one Gordon found in your car." My son spoke before she could redirect. His voice was flat, past the point of performance. "It started 2 years ago. 3 big clients dropped off in 6 months. I burned through savings, the credit cards piled up." He swallowed. "Tamsin knew someone who could arrange private financing. Short term," she said, "just to bridge the gap." "Against our property," I said. "Against the future value of the estate." He stared at the table. "I thought I could fix it before Dad found out." The estate. As though Gordon and I had already expired and our 47 years together were just an accounting entry. She leaned forward. "Your husband had the resources to help his son. He refused every single time. He gave lectures about character and hard work while Russell was drowning. We were trying to survive." "By forging my signature on transfer documents," I said. "Drafts." "By telling a bank I was cognitively impaired." We needed to avoid delays. While my husband's body was barely cold. She said nothing to that. Then the pounding started at my front door, not a neighbor's knock, a fist flat and hard against the wood. Russell Crane. A man's voice out in the night. We know you're in there. My son went the color of old ash. She spun on him. You said they wouldn't come here. I walked to the door. She caught my arm. Don't. I looked at her hand until she let go of me, then I kept the chain on and opened the door 2 inches. 2 men on my porch in dark coats, one broad and impatient with a folder under his arm, one thin and still with a briefcase. Mrs. Crane, the thin one said, we're looking for your son regarding an outstanding financial obligation. He doesn't live here, I said. We have reason to believe he's present. What kind of obligation? The other one opened the folder, defaulted loan, misrepresentation of collateral, missed restructuring deadlines. You can send formal written notice, I said. The thin one reached into his briefcase. We have. Repeatedly, he held out a folded document. Your son has 48 hours before further action begins. I took it, he gave a short nod and they walked back to their car. I shut the door and locked it. Back in the kitchen, I opened the notice and read the number halfway down the page. $175,000, I said. My son covered his face. The interest compounded, she said. We tried to restructure twice and it didn't hold. I set the paper down. How many lenders? 3, my son said without looking up. We used the second to keep the first quiet. The third to buy time with the second. By the time Dad found the first agreement, there were already 3. The room felt like it was getting smaller. What exactly did your father find? I asked. He looked up. Something in his face was different now, not just ashamed but frightened in a way that had nothing to do with me. He found printed emails, he said. A conversation between her and one of the lender contacts. It mentioned the house. It mentioned timelines around the estate. It mentioned he stopped. What? I said. Plans to file for a caregiving arrangement after he passed. After he passed, said as a scheduling item, a date to work around. She crossed her arms. She had stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. And then he changed his will, my son said. She reached into her purse, drew out her phone, turned it toward me. A photograph, Gordon sitting in his truck outside a house I recognized, Agatha's house 2 streets away. The angle was from across the street, long zoom. Gordon's face was visible through the windshield. Your husband had been visiting that woman for months, she said. Meeting privately. Discussing your family's business with a neighbor. Before you decide you understand everything, you might want to ask what he was actually planning. I looked at the photo, then at her. I intend to, I said. That was not the answer she expected. She read my face looking for confusion, for the softness of grief she had been counting on, and found neither. Then go ask her, she said. Her voice had gone cold and clipped. Ask Agatha what your husband was building against us. Ask her what he told that detective, and then decide whether the man you buried was really the saint you've decided to make him. She picked up her purse and walked out of my kitchen. The front door opened and shut. My son stood up, Tamsin. Her engine turned over in the driveway. He stood in the hallway, did not follow. After a long moment he came back to the kitchen table and sat down. There's something I didn't tell you, he said. I waited. Dad called me about 3 weeks before he died. He stared at the tabletop. He said his medication hadn't felt right for months, that he was keeping his new prescription hidden. He asked me if Tamsin had ever gone into your bathroom during the week she stayed with you after your knee surgery. I went very still. I told him yes, she had been in and out of the bathroom the whole time. I didn't think anything of it then. And after he died. She told me not to mention the call. His voice got smaller. She said Dad was paranoid, that the fatigue was making him irrational. She said grief does strange things to people, and if I started raising questions with no proof, I would only hurt you more. She used my grief as the reason you should stay quiet. He looked at the table, yes. I got up. My hands were not entirely steady. I made them move with purpose anyway. I went to the drawer Gordon never let me clear out, address books, pens, old church bulletins, and found what I needed inside of 30 seconds. Agatha's number written on an index card in Gordon's handwriting, filed under important. She answered on the second ring. When I said my name, all the tiredness left her voice at once. Rosie, not a greeting, more like confirmation of something she had been expecting. He told you everything, I said. Yes. The medication? Yes. She was careful and precise, the voice of someone who had spent a career choosing words for legal documents. He filed a formal complaint with Dr. Hadley 4 months before he passed. He suspected the pills in his cabinet had been replaced with a lower dosage. He couldn't prove it. He had already started hiding his new prescription, but he documented the full timeline in his journal. After Gordon died, Dr. Hadley reopened the complaint and forwarded it to the County Health Board. A review was opened. "The trust," I said. "Filed and recorded. The house and the workshop are protected. You are sole trustee. Nothing can be sold or transferred without your direct written authorization, and the terms cannot be altered by anyone." "Agatha," I lowered my voice. Did he think she meant to kill him? A pause. He believed she was desperate and reckless and did not understand the consequences of what she was doing. That was his exact language. He refused to accuse her of intending for him to die, but he was clear, very clear, that he believed someone had interfered with his health to make him more manageable. I pressed one hand to the kitchen counter. "There is a detective," Agatha said. "Gordon spoke with him directly 6 weeks before he passed, left a formal record of his concerns. When the bank reported the attempted account access to me 2 days ago, I released everything. The journal, the trust documents, Gordon's pharmacy records, and Dr. Hadley's notes. He has all of it." "He called me an hour ago," she said. "He may be coming to you tonight." I thanked her. I hung up. My son was standing in the doorway watching me. "Your father was not paranoid," I said. "He was careful. There's a significant difference." He nodded. He did not argue. 40 minutes later, headlights moved across the front curtains. A dark sedan I didn't recognize at the curb, a man in his late 40s climbing out, unhurried, holding a folder with the calm of someone who had knocked on a great many doors and never needed to knock twice. He rang my bell once, then stood and waited. I opened the door. "Mrs. Crane," he said. "I'm Detective Soren. I apologize for the hour." He held up his identification. "I need to speak with you about your husband's death and the records he filed before he passed." I opened the door wider. "Come in." And as I said it, I saw headlights again at the curb. My daughter-in-law's car, sliding to a stop behind the detective's. She had come back. She walked in the way she always had, as though confidence alone could rearrange the facts of a room. She stopped when she saw Detective Soren, standing at my kitchen table with his folder open. "What is this?" "Please sit down," he said without looking up from his papers. She sat. He went through it the way Gordon would have. One piece at a time, no drama, no raised voice, the attempted account access, the irregular notarization, the forged signature on the property drafts, the loan agreements, the emails referencing post-death timelines, Gordon's complaint to his doctor, the pills recovered from his original medication bottle, which had been tested at 60% of his prescribed dosage. She went very still at that last part. He laid a page on the table. "We obtained records from the online pharmacy connected to your payment history 4 months before your father-in-law's death." The pills in his cabinet did not match his prescription. She looked at my son. He looked at the floor. She looked at me. I looked back and did not look away. Something broke open in her, not sorrow, not remorse, the particular rage of a person who planned carefully and still lost. I did not want him dead. Her voice was sharp and small. I needed him slower, more willing to cooperate. There's a difference. No one moved. She kept talking, faster now, the words coming out like something that had been under pressure for a very long time. He was going to cut us off entirely, lock every account. Leave Russell with nothing until he met a list of conditions that could take years. Meanwhile, we had lenders calling twice a day and threatening to show up at our address. I thought if his medication was just a little weaker, if he was tired, confused, he'd stop fighting, he'd sign something, just enough to buy us time. "You replaced his pills," I said. She exhaled. I switched them. "Lower dose. I didn't know about his heart valve. No one did, not even his doctor until the autopsy." "He died." "I know that. You gave him the wrong medication for 4 months and he died." She pressed her lips together and said nothing. Detective Soren rose slowly from his chair. He said the formal words in a quiet, level voice. He guided her hands behind her back the way a person does when they have done it many times, and understand that steadiness is a form of respect even here. Criminally negligent homicide, fraud, conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse. At the door she turned and looked at me one last time. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said. "I know," I said. "That was the problem. You never thought about how far anything might go." He walked her out, the door closed. The house went quiet in a way it had not been quiet all evening. My son and I sat at the kitchen table until the sky outside started shifting from black to dark blue. I made coffee. He drank it slowly with both hands around the cup, like someone who needed to hold on to something ordinary. "Did you know?" I asked him, once, plainly. "No." He said it the way people say true and terrible things. "I suspected something was wrong. Dad mentioned the cabinet." She explained it away, and I let her, because facing what it might mean was something I couldn't do and still function. "You chose not to look." "Yes. That isn't the same as being innocent." "I know," he said. We sat in that for a while. It was too heavy to rush past. Around 7 in the morning, he said he was sorry. Not once, several times, in different ways, the way a person does when they mean it, but don't trust that any single version of the words is adequate. I told him I believed him. I also told him that sorry is a place to start, not a place to rest. "You will tell the full truth to everyone who asks. You will cooperate completely." "Yes." "You will face every debt you created in full, without shortcuts." He nodded. "And whether you find your way back into this family will depend entirely on the man you choose to be from today forward." That broke him. He cried quietly into his coffee, the way adult children cry when they have finally run out of excuses. All the defense gone, just the raw thing underneath. I let him cry. Because he was still my son, and some part of a mother never fully stops being one, no matter what the years lay at her feet. The months that followed were not simple. The investigation widened. Phone records tied my daughter-in-law to an irregular online pharmacy. The pills tested at 60% of Gordon's prescribed dosage. The medical examiner amended the cause of death to include a contributing cardiac factor related to under-medication. The charges held. The trust Gordon had built held firmer. The house was mine. The workshop was mine. The lenders negotiated a repayment schedule with my son, who cooperated fully with every party that asked anything of him. He moved into a small apartment in town, found steadier work, stopped talking about what he was owed and started accounting for what he owed others. I opened Gordon's workshop in the spring, went every Thursday, swept sawdust that had settled over months, oiled the tools, let air back in through the windows. One Saturday, my son appeared in the doorway without calling first. He stood there a while. "Can I come in?" I said yes. He picked up a cloth and started on the workbench without asking whether he should. We worked side by side for 2 hours. It was not forgiveness, not fully, not yet. Forgiveness is not something that arrives all at once like weather. It moves in slowly, some days forward, some days barely, but we were moving. On a break, sitting on 2 old stools by the window, he looked around the workshop and said quietly, "He built something real here." "He did," I said. A pause. "Mom, do you think he knew, when he was making all those preparations, the trust, the journal, the detective, do you think he knew how close to the edge he already was?" I turned that question over for a while before answering. "I think he felt the storm coming," I said, at last. "I think he didn't know exactly what form it would take. But he spent the last year of his life making sure that whatever hit me, I would still be standing on solid ground when it was over." My son nodded. He looked at the photo I had framed on the workshop wall, Gordon in his 50s, sawdust on his shirt, laughing at something off camera, full and easy and completely himself. "I should have been more like him," my son said quietly. "You still can be," I told him. "That's the part that's still yours to decide." He didn't answer. He set down his coffee, stood up and went back to work. And that felt like something worth building on. I was 67 years old when my husband died, when people tried to take what he spent a lifetime building, when I learned that the woman who called me mom at every holiday table had been rearranging our lives like pieces on a board she thought only she could see. What I learned from all of it, the thing I carry now every single day, is this: silence protects the people who are doing the harm. Grief is not weakness, and people who count on your sorrow to make you blind have badly underestimated the particular kind of vision that loss can give you. Gordon knew this. He built it into every careful letter, every sealed document, every quiet conversation with a neighbor who knew how to hold the truth until the right moment. He laid the groundwork for my protection before he was even gone, because that was the kind of man he was, not perfect, no marriages, but thorough, and faithful to the truth even when the truth was hard to carry. He left me the tools. I only had to pick them up. Tell me in the comments, would you have confronted your son that same night, or waited until morning when you had more of the answers in hand?